While there is a great deal of anticipation and expectation on some military or kinetic action, in my view, those kinetic steps would have only been tactical. The most major step that India could take has already been taken, and that was on the Indus Waters Treaty. I would say that the next few days uh, or the immediate future ahead is very uncertain, and one should not also uh, exclude the possibility of a more dangerous situation developing.
Hello and welcome to Table Talk. On this new edition, I am Jyotsna. It has been more than 10 days since the attack on 26 innocent tourists in Pahalgam in Kashmir. They were gunned down in cold blood in a meadow called Mini Switzerland. Since then, India continues to up the ante. It has downgraded diplomatic relations with Pakistan. Importantly, the Indus Water Treaty has been suspended. India has also banned direct and indirect import from Pakistan, and in a somewhat bizarre statement, has also suspended accounts of certain social media accounts of certain actors from Pakistan. But hours after the barbaric attack on innocents, Kashmiris from all walks of life came out to speak up against this terror attack. However, across the country, innocent Kashmiris, whether they are shawl sellers in Missouri or students studying across the country, have been targeted because they are Kashmiris. The wife of the slain victim, Vinay Narwal, who became the face of this tragedy, has also spoken out, saying we should not be targeting Kashmiris or Muslims for this attack in Pahalgam. But as things stand, she now is being trolled and is being sent abuse for speaking up. Because if there is no hate, where would we be? However, as Pakistani troops continue to violate the ceasefire along several sectors of the line of control, and joining me today is former High Commissioner to Pakistan, Mr. TCA Raghavan. He joins me to speak about what the last few days have been like and what we can expect in the coming future when it comes to India-Pakistan relations. This is a must-watch. Mr. Raghavan, thank you so much for speaking to me today.
Thank you.
Now, it has been more than 10 days since the terror attack in Pahalgam. How do you put into perspective India's actions so far?
In my view, the major step the most major step that India could take has already been taken, and that was on the Indus Waters Treaty. While there is a great deal of anticipation and expectation on some military or kinetic action, in my view at least, and other views may differ, those kinetic steps would have only been tactical. I think the really big step, which is something which has not been done earlier, was with regard to the Indus Waters Treaty, because that is a hugely symbolic step as far as Pakistan is concerned. I think that being taken very quickly on really summed up the Indian position.
So in your opinion, and the way we're looking at it in that gradual escalation, was that a step that was taken too early in the ladder?
Well, that is for the government to say. I don't know. But in my view, especially with regard to popular views in India, because such a major step got packaged with steps which were otherwise pretty routine and part of the normal kind of steps which are taken whenever there is a India-Pakistan dip, as with regard to visas or trade or high commission and diplomatic personnel. Because it was packaged along with those, the public mood did not decipher or could not sufficiently decipher and did not give enough weightage to that to the significance of the Indus Waters Treaty being kept in abeyance.
You
If
speak
you
about the Indian mood, and I'll come back to that. Uh, at the moment, how would you describe the state of India-Pakistan relations?
Well, I wrote about it somewhere, and I said it's about as near to zero as you can get. Uh, the relationship, of course, had been progressively hollowed out 2017 onwards, and especially after 2019, because trade had effectively been banned. There was virtually no uh, political or high level dialogue. The diplomatic relationship had been downgraded. There were very few visas being issued, and a host of other steps which suggested a serious downturn in the relationship had been taken. So the relationship had, in any case, been at a uh, at a very low plateau. After this major terrorist attack and that deep sense of outrage which was felt universally in India, I think that the needle has moved closer, even closer to zero. So that is how I would describe the relationship today. It's in a deep, deep crisis.
Also, where do you see Kashmir now? When we saw the tourists evacuated, in a sense, the exodus, it was kind of a deja vu once again, isn't it?
Well, after a major terrorist attack like this, there will inevitably be a huge impact on public morale where tourism is concerned. So, to that extent, it's quite a big setback to the process which had been there in Kashmir for the past few years.
Would you say that Kashmir in itself has been the victim with this entire normalcy push that that was being shown, or the optics of the normalcy push, and that Kashmir itself, we've heard Omar Abdullah say that it's always been a process. We haven't reached that space yet. In that, that complacency that came with it.
Well, it's difficult for me to say because I have no very great first-hand experience of the internal situation in Jammu and Kashmir. I visited there often, and my sense always was that there is certainly things were looking up in a very significant way, but there was a sense of fragility, and that fragility could always be exploited by those who wanted to do so.
So I'm going to
So
bring you back to
I'm
what
not
is.
sure whether that meant there was a deep sense of complacency, but as I said, this is a pretty significant setback to the process which had been there in the past few years.
What, in your opinion, is the solution for the India-Pakistan relations?
Well, it's difficult to say. The best minds in both our countries have applied themselves to that very question for a long period of time and have not been able to come up with a answer. In my view, this is a serious structural dispute. It's not a small dispute. It's a major dispute because issues of uh, foundational principles are tied up. For everyone in India, Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of the country. For Pakistan, K in Pakistan stands for Kashmir. So squaring that circle is not easy. The point is that many neighboring countries face this kind of structural dispute, and such structural disputes are not rare amongst neighbors. So it is possible that with creative diplomacy, the situation can be managed much better. But it has not really worked in the India Pakistan context because of a host of other factors. And there I would say the internal lack of stability in Pakistan, and especially the role of the civil military dynamic and the inability of uh, those two, the political powers and the military powers, to come to a sustainable, workable solution or agreement between themselves, has prevented any kind of process from gathering roots. So we have seen phases in which progress was made in India-Pakistan relations, but those processes were always interrupted, and the interruption meant a major regression, which is what has happened since 2016 onwards. The downside in India-Pakistan relations since 2016 followed a period where it did appear possible to make some progress. So I would say the only way forward in the India-Pakistan relationship is concerned is to look at process rather than solutions. Because there's no solution in terms of a rabbit being pulled out of a hat which will satisfy both countries. It's a foundational difference of opinion. But it is possible to think of a process, provided both countries are sufficiently invested in that process, to think then of making incremental gains and the relationship very gradually acquiring some stability, if not normalizing, at least acquiring some stability. I think, in my view, there have always been question marks about the Pakistani investment in that process.
And also, that there are going to be domestic, an eye on domestic vote bank, so to speak. I mean, this is the vote bank that goes around, still talking about Balakot, and is probably expecting something similar militarily.
That is so. As I said, there is a public expectation in India that until some kind of kinetic military action is taken, somehow the outrage which is there in India is not sufficiently conveyed to Pakistan. In my view, that outrage has been conveyed with regard to by the decision taken on the Indus Waters Treaty. But yes, I mean, I think domestic politics plays a role. But I wasn't. I mean, I don't think the real problem is domestic politics, because there's always domestic politics in every issue. I think both in India and in Pakistan, if you look at the last 25 years, uh, the entire range of the political spectrum in both countries has been in the government and has dealt with the other country in a significant way. So whether it's in India or in Pakistan, you can see that all the political players, whether they are in the opposition or now in the government, have been dealing with Pakistan at some point of time or the other. I think the problem is the structural issue in Pakistan, which is of the civil military absence of agreement. And that is the structural fault line in Pakistan, which impacts the relationship with India very, very deeply.
And events like what has happened, tragic events like what has happened in Pahalgam, also once again bring out in all clarity that cross-border terrorism has clearly not been uprooted at all.
Well, that's very evident, because if you look at the internal situation in Pakistan and the number of terrorist attacks which take place there, it is quite evident that in that country there are a very significant number of actors who are capable of carrying out major terrorist attacks. So, is it possible to think of a situation whereby there are no cross-border attacks from Pakistan into India while the internal situation in Pakistan continues in the same way? It's very difficult to envisage that, because there will always be someone who is prepared to carry out some kind of a strike if the opportunity presents itself. I think the problem is a more fundamental one, and that is of how Pakistan attends the structural issue of terrorism in a comprehensive way, so that it also has a beneficial impact on India-Pakistan relations. So its willingness to do so has been somewhat questionable.
And do you think it is going to be willing to sort this out? You've lived in Pakistan, so you would know better than many of us, the kind of actions that can be expected out of Pakistan at the moment.
At the moment, they have wrapped themselves in a you know, in a cloak of denial that India has not presented any evidence, and this is just its usual blame game, and there are any number of other explanations for this terrorist attack, including, and they say it sometimes, including a false flag operation, etc., etc. So the question of evidence and India blaming Pakistan as a kind of default position, these are the this is the uppermost mood, and of course a certain defensiveness and a sense of consolidation because they feel that they are being threatened or coerced by India. In that kind of mood, it's very difficult to see how they will take any action. Perhaps they may still, but insofar as history is a guide, in that kind of mood, they seldom take any action against the groups responsible.
And there is the US. I mean, we've heard Trump with that bizarre statement of India, Pakistan have a problem for the last 1500 years. But where at the moment do you think the US role in this conflict?
I think the US role will not be as significant as it was in the past for many reasons, but most of all, I think because the US priority has shifted away from this region. I think both in India and in Pakistan, there should be no great expectation that the US can somehow play a role which would be helpful. I think both their interest and also their capacity to play that role has come down quite sharp.
The attention then goes to China, doesn't it, Mr. Raghavan? China, with its support of Pakistan, also through other ways, whether it is cyber attacks or the things that are not very obvious.
So far, the Chinese have shown no great inclination to get involved in this. See, India-Pakistan situations are not new, and these kind of crises have arisen multiple times in the past. In my reading, the experience of most countries is that uh, it's not entirely beneficial for them to get involved in this. So I would say that right now that is the approach of most countries. Perhaps they are monitoring what is happening. Perhaps they think it's premature, but I don't think there is any great desire for any country, including China, to get involved in this. Uh, it is also my view that others may disagree. Others do disagree with this view quite often. That the role of other countries or other powers in the India-Pakistan context is exaggerated. I think in the end, India and Pakistan have to resolve these issues, including diffusing this crisis and including uh, making sure that such attacks don't recur. India and Pakistan have to do this themselves.
What are the ramifications for South Asia of this latest conflict?
But it's a further setback for any kind of regionalism in South Asia. As it is, regional cooperation in South Asia has also been under great pressure in the last few years. This is in large part because of the India-Pakistan equation, but also because of other factors such as the situation in Myanmar, the downside in India-Bangladesh relations. I think this is one more factor which further erodes regionalism in South Asia.
I have one final question for you. That's just in a way to sum it up. How do you see the next few days?
Well, I see the next few days as being very, very uncertain, perhaps even very difficult. Uh, the fact is that since 2021, for the past 4 years, although India-Pakistan relations had been at a very low plateau, they had a certain minimum level of stability because of the ceasefire on the LOC. I think that stability has now gone. So I would say that the next few days uh, or the immediate future ahead is very uncertain, and one should not also exclude the possibility of a more dangerous situation developing.
Raghavan, thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.